Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Now here we have a GTX 560. So you're asking yourself probably, why are you showing me a reference GTX 560? This is very clearly the reference heatsink, and a 560 is nothing special. Well, I'm gonna show you this, and now you're gonna go like, okay, usually you get 3 or 4 outputs, this only has 2, but okay, I mean, this is probably not that special. And now I'm showing you the back, and now if you know your way around graphics cards, you're going, oh, that's why. So, so a GTX 560 normally has a GF114 GPU. One of the easy ways to see if it has a GF114 is that the GF114 and also the GF104, which is the GTX 400 series predecessor of the GF114, they have a non-square mounting system. This one has. So this GTX 560 is not using a GF114. Now, there is a GTX 560 Ti, the 448 cores edition, that uses also not a 114, but this is not one of those. This is something else. This is a GTX 560 OEM, as it's called. This card, I've seen one of these before. I didn't go for it then, but I did go for this one as soon as I saw it because it was really cheap as well and I just wanted one of these. This GPU is apparently so hard to come by that TechPowerUp actually revised their site when I told them about this card. So there's a Discord server where some TechPowerUp people are, and I told them, hey, the GTX 560 OEM spec site you have on TechPowerUp is pretty incomplete, and there were actually some errors in them in that site, which we corrected after they took a look at this card. So basically, if you go look up GTX 560 OEM and then go to TechPowerUp, what you're seeing right now is a GPU picture from this very card, from this very GPU that I'm gonna show you. It's going to now show a different TMU count than it did before, because it was displaying 44 TMUs before, but this actually has 48. It now has dimensions, which I gave them for this card, and they also corrected the display outs, because previously they said it has 2 DPI, 1 DisplayPort, 1 HDMI, which I mean, I'm not sure if every 560 OEM only has these 2 outputs, but apparently they thought they do. So I told them that my card only has 2 outputs, but I'm not sure if that's true for every card, but they changed it to only 2 outputs on the website. So that's how uncommon this card is, I guess. There's probably several thousands of these out there because it's from a pre-built system. But in the sort of hardware enthusiast space, I think my light doesn't do anything. As you can maybe see by the strip, the light is actually natural now. I've moved my desk right next to the window, and this is natural light now, not my desk lamp anymore. Sadly, the trade-off is this line. Maybe I can just open the window. And there we go. So this card is a very, very special thing, which is why I picked it up. So, the GPU that's in this is actually a GF110, just like the 560 Ti 448 has. But this is a GF110 with 384 cores, at least for now. The 560 Ti 448, as the name says, has 448 cores. So this is an even different version of the GF110, which also, literally in TechPowerUp's entire GPU database, they did not have the model that this GPU has listed. Which is why I sent them a picture, and they uploaded that to their site and are using it now to, as reference for GPUs of this model number. If you go on TechPowerUp, go look at the picture of the GPU that's on this card in full screen, and then look at the edges. You're going to see a little bit of red. which is, well, because it's a picture from this very card. Yeah. Also, I gotta say, I forgot the name, but the person that was on the Discord server where I talked to, like, that guy was a Tech Power Up employee. Just gotta say, very helpful. Shout out to that guy. I sadly did forget the name, but very, very helpful. Responded very quickly, and spent a lot of time to get specifications for this card filled in on the website. So, very pleasant man to work with. And yeah. And as far as it goes, what I'm planning to do with this card is I'm gonna overclock it for sure. And I'm going to try to unlock the GPU. Because if the driver is not installed and you launch GPU-Z, it shows 448 cores. When the driver is installed and you launch GPU-Z, it shows 384. Now that's a very telltale sign of driver locking GPU cores. I didn't forget a screw, did I? No, that's just thermal paste holding on the GPU. That's the annoying thing about Fermis. You literally have to like pry them off. Because they are so hard to remove. I always feel like I'm breaking it. Which probably one day I will. Come on. There we go. And I ripped the thermal pad. So yeah, now you can also see another special thing about the card, which is it actually has not 8 memory chips. Normal 560s and 560 Ti's have 1 GB of memory, which means they have 8 1 gigabit memory chips, if I remember that correctly. This one does not have 8. This one actually has 1.2 gigabytes of memory. With Hynix 1 gigabit BFR chips for my card specifically. And I was talking about the GPU model number so much, so I'm gonna clean off the thermal paste and show you. So, this card uses a GF110-040-A1. So, yeah. This GPU was... I found no reference of this GPU online. Which, yeah. So, yeah, if you look up GF110-040-A1 on Tech Power Up, you're going to see a picture of this specific GPU, this exact one. And, well, I can't really go close to the camera or the light will cut off, but yeah, I mean... That's what the GPU on this is. And now you also get to see the rest of the PCB. And, well, this part is very cursed in my opinion. Because we have a GF110 here, running on a 3-phase VRM. It has some cooling at least, as you can see here. And the fin stack is decently sized. If we get the camera to actually get a good picture. But yeah, you can see the fins here. So the cooling for the VRM is better than a reference 460. Like I had a GTX 460 SE that also had a 3-phase. That one didn't have any cooling, and I actually blew up that VRM when I ran the card at 1.2 volts. So yeah, there is an option for a 4th phase, which I was really hoping to get on this one. But yeah, you only get 3. Also, you only get 1 6-pin PCIe power. There, you can see there's like spots and empty solder pads for a second one. And actually, if you look at the power planes, the second 6-pin would power the 4th phase, though there are like spots like these. Here they are filled, here they are not. So you could connect the 12-volt power planes together, and then these two 6-pins would share a 12-volt power plane. But yeah, since there's probably power requirements for these OEM cards, because this is rated for only 150 watts, which for G of 110, that's not a lot. So yeah, and considering that there's not a lot of power rated for this card, this VRM is fine for what the card ships with. So the card ships at around 500 MHz core clock, and it runs at 860 millivolts full load. That is very low. I think even a GTX 590 runs at a higher voltage than this. So yeah, and you do not have any voltage control in software. You can only change memory and core clocks. And also the core clock is limited to 720 MHz max, and the memory clock is limited to 2100 MHz max. So you can't even overclock this very far. Which, yeah, that's gonna be a BIOS limit. I'm going to remove that BIOS limit, of course. The BIOS chip should be this here. I think it will refuse to be flashed with NVFlash, but since I have an EVC2SX and also a BIOS chip reprogrammer USB dongle, that won't stop me. I can just flash the chip manually without Windows. Then it won't be an issue. So yeah, this could be potentially unlocked to a 448 core variant, which basically turns this 560, like this has the same amount of cores that a normal 560 has. It has more memory, and I think it has more ROPs and TMUs than a normal 560. But it has the same amount of CUDA cores. So this could potentially be unlocked into a 560 Ti 448. Or it could potentially also be unlocked into a 570. Because the memory configuration for the 570 is the same. But yeah, like the 570 has 480 cores. Since this one was showing 448 when the driver wasn't installed, this could mean that this is just a 448 cores, that's BIOS side limited to 384 cores, or maybe GPU-Z was just picking up something and it was confused because, I mean, GPU-Z is made by Tech PowerUp and they didn't have this GPU in their database. So maybe GPU-Z was just guessing, like Typhoon Burner is doing. Like if you have a Samsung C-Die RAM stick and you go look up in Typhoon Burner what dies it uses, it will very, very likely identify it as B-Die, which it is not. It is very much not. So it could be that GPU-Z is doing something similar. It like sees a GPU and then tries to estimate what it is. Or maybe this just is a 448 core variant and I can't go any further than that. Though, I'm not entirely sure. I think the 560 Ti 448 has less ROPs than a 570, and this one was showing the ROP count of a 570 when the driver wasn't installed. It could be that these cards have the same amount of ROPs, though I'm not sure. But yeah. So I could do some very interesting things with this card. As for Volt mods, I mean, this stock VRM is a very, very big red flag. But I'm gonna do what I always do, which is run the stock VRM until I blow it up and then try to solve the problem after that. Which is probably going to be an E-Power because this PCB is very, very E-Power friendly. But let's get into Volt mods. So memory, PWM controller is right here. That's a... I think you can see it on the picture. My smartphone display isn't bright enough for me to read it out for you. Damn. Yeah, it's... I can see it like this. It's an RT8120A. So that's a standard like 8-pin PWM IC. It's a single phase, like a single memory phase. It's basically gonna be the same memory VRM you have on the 460 that I had. So this is gonna be very easy to volt mod. I think pin 6, which should be this pin, I think that's the feedback pin. I would double check the datasheet, but I'm pretty sure that this is the feedback pin. That's how you can volt mod it. The vCore PWM controller is over here. And so don't know if you can see that. Light still doesn't help. Come on, focus. Okay, this one you can see a bit better. It's an NCP5392P. That is actually a 4-phase controller. I did check the datasheet. I wouldn't advise it, but you could try populating the 4th phase. It's just I know someone who tried populating the 5th and 6th phase on a GTX, a RX 470 reference board. Like the RX 480 has a 6 phase, but the RX 470 has a 4 phase, but it's still using the same controller and PCB. It just doesn't have the 5th and 6th phase populated. And that person tried populating them and like put all the components on. Like you don't just have to place an inductor and MOSFETs, you have to place like a driver IC, there's like resistors and capacitors that configure settings. You have to reconfigure something around the controller to set it to 4-phase mode. That person did all this and still had the 2 extra phases blow up every time they turned on the card. So doing this there's probably a way to pull this off, but it's like not practical at all. So would not advise it. I would just e-power the thing. And since this is a red PCB, you can see the power planes very, very easily. And what you can see here is this is all vCore power plane. This entire section is vCore power plane. And then, so this strip here, that's ground. These 3 little parts, those are also ground. Then this strip is vCore, and as I've said, this is vCore. On the back, you have vCore here, you have a ground strip here, and then this should be more vCore. This capacitor is also connected to vCore, as I found out. So you have a lot of ways to attach an e-power to this thing, which is probably what I'm gonna end up doing if I blow up this VRM, and more like when I blow up this VRM. So yeah, that's at least this card is pretty easy to mod. I was having some concerns that maybe this card is a bit too like rare to like put an e-power to it and ruin it, but I was encouraged to make this special card even more special by turning it into an e-powered card. So I'm gonna do that, and like there's probably gonna be another one of these on eBay someday. Like I thought this is already the second one. I've seen another one on eBay like this. So there's gonna be a third one eventually if I really want one that's in stock condition. So yeah, I will put an e-power on this someday. It's probably not gonna be the e-power 5, but sadly that's the only e-power that I have 3 right now. Because well, I have a 580 e-power that's on my 970, and it's not going off of that. Then I have a 480 e-power that's attached to my semi-working 680, and then I have another 580 e-power that is not working currently because there was a trace that I damaged, and this trace is connected to a pin that needs to be pulled high. And sadly, I damaged the trace in such a way that I can only solder directly to the pin on the CHA8266 to pull this pin high, and that is very, very hard to do. So that e-power is probably going to stay dead until I find out some way to pull that pin high that is actually practically doable for me. So yeah, gonna look for dead 480s or 580s again and then strap an e-power to that, because that would literally double the VRM. These MOSFETs are the same ones you get on our reference 580, but 3 phases, and the 580 has 6 phases. So yeah, doubling the VRM. And speaking of VRM, this card actually has a very nice output filter. Like, I really like the output filter. This output filter is straight up better than the reference 581. So you can see you have 6 330 microfarad SMD polymer capacitors on the front. And then on the back, you have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are all connected to core, also 330 microfarad SMD polymers. On the 580 you only get 6, or like what you have on the front. What you have on the back here, the 580 doesn't have. Admittedly, the 580 has a lot more multilayer ceramics than this array, but the thing is, multilayer ceramics have a very low capacity compared to these capacitors. So in terms of total capacitance, this one beats the reference GTX 580 output filter. Now, multilayer ceramics have superior electrical characteristics, so they are, well, like they have less ESR, less ESL, and they are better for filtering, I think, higher frequency. I think multilayer ceramics are better for filtering higher frequency. These are for like middle frequency, and then CAN type capacitors like these are good for filtering low frequencies. But the thing is, the high frequency switching noise occurs behind the core a lot. So usually you see a lot of multilayer ceramics behind the core, and this is the exact same configuration you get on a 580. So yeah. So that's why I'm going with this output filter is probably just straight up better than what you get on a reference GTX 580, which I like. So yeah, and that will probably mean, yeah, like when I'm e-powering this, I'm gonna remove the inductors. I'm probably gonna leave this as it is. I would have a strip of V-core here. And then, because the low side MOSFETs are connected to ground on one side, this should be a ground plane, and this should be a ground plane, and this should be a ground plane. So what I'm gonna do is either just use these ground planes by themselves, or just bridge the ground plane to the now empty switch node when I remove all the MOSFETs and inductors, and now I have the switch node for connecting to ground as well. So that should be plenty of space to attach an e-power to this card, without having to resort to like screw holes or like axes that's like far away from the core. Like this is literally where the stock VRM would be. I could solder some V-core connections here, which I probably would do. And like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 you can get in here. Just make sure, like, if I was to... Okay, if I e-power this, probably try to run it cold. So an LN2 port would basically block this area, so I'm gonna have to put the wires to this part in such a way that an LN2 port still fits. But that should be possible, that shouldn't be too hard. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, this card is very interesting. Like, if you see one of these and just want something to tinker with, I think this is totally worth it. Like, you get something that you can potentially turn into a GTX 570, and I think this was 15 euros shipped, like no extra shipping. Yeah, like, this is a very fun, like, it's not expensive. You do get a GF 110. You do get a very, like, PCB that's very e-power friendly. Like, yeah, like this card seems like a very nice card to, like, for projects or even for beginners. Like, I mean, generally Fermi cards I think are good for beginners because they are cheap. But like this one especially, like, could also do cap mods like this, like just screams I want to be cap modded. You could also put caps here, these are probably also core. And then you have also this for memory, where you could put capacitors, or like just stack multilayer ceramics on top of each other. This is very easy to Voltmod. This, at least you can get a datasheet for, so probably also easy to Voltmod, just have to find the feedback pin. The BIOS chip is even on the back, so you can BIOS flash this without taking it apart. Like, this is a very, very nice, interesting card, just for modding. And I mean, it's kind of rare. Like, I'm pretty sure if I would bench this for HW bot, I would be the only one submitting scores for this. They might actually not have this card even in like on record. Well, I guess I could submit scores with this one to the normal GTX 560 ranking because it gets picked up as a normal vanilla 560. Yet it has a GeForce 10, it has more memory, different amount of ROPs and TMUs. Like, I would have suspicions that maybe this card would be illegal to use as a normal 560. But yeah, like if I unlock this into a 560 Ti 448, I could use that ranking. If I unlock this into a 570, I could use that ranking as well. But yeah, like, it's an interesting card. And this video is 25 minutes long. So yeah, I think I've run out of things to say. So video ends now. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, goodbye.